This is Baggies View. Coming up, we look at the latest events at the Hawthorns. Welcome to Baggies View. I'm Steve Wollaston. Joining us in our Fort Dunlop studio today is Chris Lepkowski. Welcome, Chris.
Hi.
Funny games at Blues and Villa. Lots going on, but what's happening at Albion? We want to know. Is it quiet times? Gareth McCauley and Billy Jones have signed up. Is there much sign of anybody else? What do you make of the
Well, the two new lads, they're very much brought in on free Bosmans, if you like. There wasn't an awful lot of competition for them. There were straightforward deals. It is quiet at the moment. The transfer window doesn't actually open until July, and although those two players you mentioned have signed, they don't actually officially sign until next month. So it's a quiet period. Albion's admin personnel is away at the moment. Jeremy Peace is away at the moment. So it's a quiet period. But, things will tick over the next few weeks and we might see some progress being made. Certainly on one player, David Vaughan, who has got to give Albion a decision one way or the other, whether he'll be going for them or for Sunderland. So there is a little bit going on, but certainly not as much as we're getting over at Birmingham and Villa.
What kind of scale of transfers do you see at Albion this summer? Do you see the kind of transfer activity that will please the fans? Or
I think it'll be a very structured approach. I don't think we'll realistically see the transfer record being broken. A lot of it is down to how Roy likes to or wants to allocate his resources. Really, he has got a set budget. He's already bought two Bosmans in. There is scope to pay some money out for players if he wishes to. Albion, I suspect, would rather go down the approach of paying lower transfer fees and bringing in players for higher wages, a little bit like they did with Paul Shiner last year and one or two others. So, there is scope to bring people in. I suspect at least one goalkeeper, maybe two, a defensive midfielder's certainly being targeted, and at least one striker. Billy Jones will play, I suspect, or challenge for the right back role, and Gareth McCauley can play at centre half. He's very much a defender who does what it says on the tin. Robust, commanding, physical, not the quickest maybe, but he's the kind of defender that Roy likes.
Yeah. And what do you make of links with Zoltan Gera?
Zoltan, firstly, reports that he had a medical last week and failed are a little bit premature. He has spoken to Dan, he has met Dan. That was before Dan went on holiday a few weeks ago. I spoke to Zoltan a couple of weeks ago. The problem appears to be in his ankle. He's got issues there. Whether he's got an inherent knee problem, that remains to be seen. But he didn't seem to be under any kind of certainly didn't seem too concerned with it. And we've got to remember about Zoltan is that he will miss the first 3 games of next season. And Albion do still very much have an interest there. They are, if you like, keeping that one bubbling away. But it's a time of year where people are either on holiday or simply not rushing into things at the moment. So that one will sort of cook away, if you like.
I suppose they know that would be a move that would please the fans as well. Do you think?
I think so. I think, Zoltan's 32 now, but he left with a lot of good grace. He was a big favourite when he was at West Brom, and I think he'd be very welcome back.
And what you probably have to help me out with the pronunciation here. We've got PSV striker Ola Toivonen.
Been
linked with Baggies then?
Yes, he's been watched. He's been watched by the scouting system for some time actually, and Roy was aware of him when he was at Liverpool. Not an awful lot to say on that one. PSV want far too much money. Funnily enough, they're not in the greatest financial position by all accounts, but they're simply not. They're not willing to relax the demands that they want for him, which is in the region of 9-10 million, which West Brom won't pay.
No. And I suppose probably the most important negotiations Albion have got this summer is arguably Peter Odemwingie. Is there any latest on that at all?
Not an awful lot. They're hoping to talk this week. Again, it's almost a rubber stamping job. I can't imagine there will be any issues there. He didn't come in on the greatest of wages to start with. When you're talking Premier League wages, so they will look to increase that. Won't be a huge increase. Certainly won't be doubled his wages as some newspapers have already reported, it'll be a lot more structured, a lot more Albion-like, more conservative. But it'll be a deal
he
that
genuinely seems to want to stay.
he does want to stay. You know, he's bought into the club. He's happy, and you always get a feeling with certain players when they're unhappy, they start leaking little bits out on international duty. There's been none of that with Peter. He's been happy and settled from day one. The fans have made him welcome, which has helped, and he's just quite happy to get on with his career. He's 30 next month, so this deal will have to be a good one. But you know, I'm confident that he'll stay.
And another player who's rumoured to be not on his way, but certainly, you know, the speculation is Scott Carson, who's been linked with the move to
Bursaspor. Scott's been looked at. Bursaspor seem to have been doing a lot of their scouting in the UK. They've had a bid rejected for Stephen Whittaker at Rangers, had a look at Rob Green and Alan McGregor of Rangers as well. But Scott's the one they seem to have settled on. There hasn't been any settlement on any kind of figure as yet, but they have made an inquiry for him. Albion are willing to let him go. He's got 1 year left on his contract, no sign of that being extended. So now's the optimum time, and probably the last time they can really sell him and aim to get some kind of money for him. I would imagine in the region of about 1.5 million would probably do the job from that point of view.
And if we're to believe, speaking of goalkeepers, if we're to believe a certain Japanese goalkeeper, Eiji Kawashima, he's on his way to Albion.
So he says. This goalkeeper, he seems very keen to come to West Brom. So much so that somebody's actually started a parody of him on Twitter.
Oh, right.
But he seems to be singing from his own hymn sheet at the moment, to the degree that he's actually now given West Brom an ultimatum that they have to tell him whether they want him or not by the weekend. Well, quite simply, the answer is that they don't want him and never have wanted him, and where this has come from and who's advising him, I don't know, but there's no interest in him. There's no prospect of him joining Albion, and I really think he maybe needs to change agents.
All right, well, that seems pretty definite. Well, thanks, Chris, for joining us, and follow us online at www.birminghammail.net, and you can follow Chris on Twitter all the time. You're on there quite a lot.
Sometimes.
At Chris Lepkowski. And join us next time on Baggies View.